All right. I think it's happening. Uh Wednesday, March 13th. Thaddeus, Bill, Brandon, DJ. It's happening. And I apologize for not being here last week. I was in or flying back. I was definitely on the way or at the airport at this time last week in sunny Las Vegas. Um, Welcome, everybody, to the weekly live stream. Bit of housekeeping before we get started here. Let me turn this monitor down. The NDAs are flying all over the place, and NAB is right around the corner. And just to mention it, tomorrow, March 14th, is actually going to be our monthly episode of Camera and Flask. So it's on a Thursday, which is unusual. It's not on the first Wednesday of the month, which is also unusual. But timing wise, for the crew, the three amigos, it seems to be the only time this month that we can make it happen. So it is and has been up on the site, and it's going to be Thursday, March 14th at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Myself, Caleb Pike, and hopefully Ben, who's gallivanting around Europe somewhere, and will hopefully be able to settle himself down in the wee hours and do that. I don't know where you live, everybody, but the clocks changed this weekend, which is pretty awful in one respect, which is that you lose an hour of sleep and you're going to bed an hour later, but you're waking up, your body clock is not ready to wake up. It's all going to work out just fine because now it's lighter outside and I'll take it. But there you go. Sam, Camille, uh, I'm glad you know where you live. DJ, you're running now, but thank you. Um, we're not going to say anything rude to you. All right. So we're going to set some side. Yeah, we could set some time aside to talk about the Nikon, and Red thing. I did a little bit of an episode on that. And I'm going to open it up right now to the chat now that we're in and we're going. It's at theC47. Bring up a topic. Let's start talking about it. Let's stop messing around here. I can see your comments and reactions. I'm here and we're going to get this thing done. We've got 2 days in a row with live streams, and I want to talk about what you're excited about, what you want to discuss, and all that stuff. I know you don't recognize daylight savings stuff. Did you say scam? It says scan on the thing, but I think you mean scam. You know, Brandon, not too far away from you, there is a Native American reservation, and when you drive by it on a smartphone, the clock changes by an hour, and then it's like 10-15 minutes you're in a different time zone, and then it goes back. I wish we did as Arizona does. Pat, you're here. Glad to have you as always. And now that we have established that the changing of the clocks per Brandon is a scam, I'm not saying I disagree, especially in these modern times. Let's get on with some other stuff. Camille, glad you're going to NAB. Who else here is going to NAB? And we can talk a little bit about that more tomorrow during Camera and Flask, but I'd be interested to hear that. Thaddeus says, I haven't heard much about the red buyout. Why do you think this is? Well, I've definitely heard a lot about it, but I think that might be who I'm connected to in the community. Um, so there's a lot of stuff out there about this acquisition and what's going on. Um, you got Scott Balcom, a lot of other people talking about it, Phil Holland. Definitely people who are very connected to and using Red cameras. So it's kind of a big deal. You go over to newsshooter.com and you look at the post, and it's got more comments than probably the last 15 or 20 posts that they've had, which is my guess as to why Matt and Eric are are basically pinning that to the top because it is a big topic in the industry. Ono's here. Good to have you. Yeah, there you go. If we were having a meetup with coffee, Brandon, you know that the coffee sucks at the convention center, but secretly, I know you've been partaking in Starbucks coffee recently with the olive oils and everything else. What was the thing in China? They were doing it. I think it was for Chinese New Year. They were doing it with pork, which was weird, but hey, I could see it happening. It's not the strangest thing. Oh, Camille's not going to NAB, but a subject could be what we hope for. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. And I think that'll definitely be part of the conversation with Caleb and hopefully Ben tomorrow when we do Camera Flask on an unusual day. And yeah, unusual day, same time. Bill's producing content for one of the big manufacturers for their NAB booth as of this morning, but not sure if you're going. Okay, well, Bill, let us know if you are going. And we should definitely do a meetup. Last year, there was a bit of a confusion because between what is Central and South Hall, which really now that content has really been replaced and lives in the West Hall, which is the new building. We were going to meet outside. There's a sort of historically between Central and South, there was this setup where there would be food trucks and outside seating. And in the olden days, that's where all the satellite trucks and everything were, and you'd see pallets, and that's where they stored a lot of the stuff. And we had decided that we were going to meet up there, and it wound up not being a meeting place. So we changed it. I think this year the safest thing to do is probably what we wound up doing last year, but I think, things got crossed in terms of stuff, wires and all that stuff, is around the B&H area. So usually in the back left of the Central Hall is where Sony is anchored. I'd be surprised if they're not still anchored there because they've been there for forever. And just over in that area is sort of the long corridor that B&H has. And I think what we'll do is sort of meet between Sony and B&H. What day, I don't know yet. My guess is probably Monday is the best of the days, and maybe Tuesday. Sunday's not usually the best day to do it because it's the first day of the show. Everybody's sort of figuring their plan out and walking the floor and everything. But maybe by sort of midday, Monday or in the afternoon, we'll figure out a meetup time so we can talk about that. We've got a Camera Flask tomorrow. We have one more coming up before the show itself. I go out. I'll be there the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. Harrison has his tickets booked and hotel, so that's handled. Ono won't fly in until Monday. Do you have an idea when you're getting in, Ono? And David, are you going? That's Carol I'm talking to. Maybe we should set up a WhatsApp group. That can get a little messy sometimes, but you won't get lost. It's gonna be Central Hall, backed by Sony. We'll have to check out the map, but I'm pretty sure that that's gonna be our meeting place in terms of everybody. Yep, there we go. Ono saying same location. It's always in that back left. They take up that whole thing, and we're just talking about right past that and missing it. Pat's missing the show this year. It has to because you're retired but working 80 hours a week. And David's not going still to this day. I'm surprised, David, after all these years, you haven't made the pilgrimage to NAB. And who knows if it's going to be around forever. I think this year will be very telling for the show. We'll see if it feels like it has shrunk or if it's as robust and healthy as ever. Because last year, a lot of the people who had booked booths for 2022 didn't go as exhibitors, and they were essentially given a credit for the following year, and they had to use it last year. So if they didn't use it, they were going to lose that. Now we're going to see what's going to happen. Yep, B&H is always there. Ono's on it. In the afternoon. Okay, well, let's see, because Tuesday is kind of a funky day. I was thinking Monday for us to get together, but it depends what time you're coming in. And, I was thinking sort of early afternoon on Monday, most likely, but we'll have to see. Also, I know that Caleb will not be there on Tuesday. So if we're trying to do a meetup and, have both myself and Caleb swing by, Ben won't be going this year, unfortunately, then Monday would be the day to do that. So we can talk it out a little bit more tomorrow. Okay, so let's get an at, hey Darren, let's get an at the C47 going. What's the topic? We can start with the red Nikon thing, or we can get into other stuff. Bill, I think my first NAB was, I believe, 2001. It may have been 2000. And I have gone to the show every year except for 1 year when one of my kids was due. And I guess 2020 and then 2021, maybe. It definitely went 2022 and 23. So yeah, I guess in all of that time, I've missed 3 years, but 2 of them were due to the pandemic. One was just due to a kid. Hola, Memo, Montesinos. Sounds like you are, or you were just in Mexico City again, because I saw your post. All right. So I've answered your question, Bill. Let's hear from everybody else. Is this going to be your first NAB? Have you been to many over the years? Do you go sporadically? Also, is anybody planning to go to Cine Gear? Not the one in New York that's starting tomorrow, but the one in Los Angeles that's in early June. I just booked my tickets for that, so that's happening for sure. And there you go. Brandon says, okay, here we go. We're getting into some tech stuff. I'm struggling to get a catch light for someone wearing glasses. Because you're trying to get the reflection out of their eyes, correct? So it's a tough one. We just actually, on that shoot that I did in Vegas, 2 out of the 3 people that we had and were interviewing had glasses. And it's, a lot of it has to do with the coatings on the glasses themselves. I happen to have an anti-reflective coating on there. You obviously can't ask talent to do something like that. And if glasses are part of their brand, or they can't really function without them, then you have to work around it. So one way to do it, Brandon, is to kind of, I'm going to say, cheat the norm when it comes to where you're keying. So you flip your key. So if I was doing an off camera interview with somebody and I was looking this way, then I'm keying from the side that I'm looking at, which is, here's the key, there's my interviewer, and then we're coming in right here to the short side so that we're this side here, where we basically have shadows and stuff like that. So we're seeing shape, right? So what you can do is, I'm mixing myself up here, is flip the key over here, and essentially, in that situation, you're not going to have as much shape. But because they're facing in that direction, they're not facing, sorry, I'm really flipping myself out because I'm trying to look at this. So you flip the key and the key's coming from over here. So now you're not going to see as much shape. It's going to feel a little flatter on this side, and your shadow is going to kind of be hanging out over here. The advantage is, because the key's coming from over here, you can generally get a catch light in the person's eyes. and still have that there. So you've got some life light in them, but it's not ideal. But it is a fix for being able to get a catch light in. You can also set a small light, very small light at a very low level, sort of where the camera is, or thereabouts. But if they don't have anti-reflective coatings and stuff, you can get some weird stuff going on with reflections in the glasses as well. So I just, that's one thing. You basically flip the key. And again, it breaks the sort of 95% of the time way that we would key, but it's not something that you can't do, and it's a breaking of the rules that I think gets you to where you need to be, because I'd rather have a catch light in the eye than be keying from the correct side. All right. Camille says, "What do you hope expect from Black Magic?" That's a good question. I mean, for me personally, I'd like to see something like the Ultimat 12 4K real-time keyer come down in price and make that more accessible, because their Ultimat products are very affordable, but they're all HD until I believe you get to the 12 4K. And that's around $2,500, which is not ridiculous. I mean, it's pretty inexpensive if you're running a studio and you're doing news or weather or things like that. But for an owner operator, a lot of us are shooting in 4K right now, or at least capturing, might be posting at 1080. So having that price point come down on a product like that would be great. And then I guess the real question is Blackmagic going to come out with any new cameras before the show? Will they ever get to the point where they're producing what we call box cameras, which are more modular, getting away from that quote unquote pocket camera size and form factor and things like that? I don't know. It's a hard call with Blackmagic in terms of where they're going to go with that kind of stuff. So we're going to have to see what happens. Anybody else want to chime in on that? David says, "Oh, between me and my and other on my upcoming production, we have persuaded them not to use." Oh, good. GL2. So what are you going to shoot on? Interested to hear. I'm saying what right, DJ? What am I saying right? I don't even know what you're saying. Yeah, 4K ATEM would be cool. I think, that's also really a 1080 base product. So I'd like to see that. They're clearly on the 4K, 8K bandwagon when it comes to a lot of their other products. So seeing that get into their switchers would be good. Brandon says, well, first I'm waiting to hear from DJ on "No, You're Saying It Right." Okay. So Brandon says, "We had a butterfly overhead key and tried to use a small source iPhone light to make a catch light. Didn't work, only had a reflection on the glasses." Yeah, the problem with this is it's too small. It's really just going to create, issues related to, especially on glass, of reflected light. You really kind of need, hold on, let me see if I have something. I'm just, hold on. Keep talking. Like, this is a little modifier for the play light from Kelvin. This is a modifier for one of the cello lights. You have the little MC lights from an MC Pros from Aperture. I think you kind of have to get into a size of about that big in order for that to work, and ideally something that will dial down considerably. The phone's not going to do it. It's just an extremely hard uh, source of light. And yeah, um, the domes for the Zhiyun 60 and the 100 and things like that also work. That's actually what I was trying to grab, was that dome. Um, the only problem that you sometimes have with those lights is they don't actually dial down low enough to um, actually work the way you want them to work. They're actually adding too much light, because when you add a catch light on the camera side, you generally want it to be just a very, very slight glow that gets red in the eye. And that's the other reason you need it to be a little bit um yeah, I was DJ, but I just, when I'm looking at the monitor here and everything's flipped, I was just confusing myself, as if that's never happened to any of us, myself included, in production. Um, what are you gonna do? And I was confusing myself because I was calling short side, and then you look and well, forget it. We don't need to get into all of that. But thank you. So catchlight wise, you wanted to read. I really do have, like an obsession to a catchlight and a single catch if possible. And this Octa 3 is not that far away from me, and it's still not like a giant catch. It's a good size catch in the eye. But what I love is when I'm bringing in a very comfortable, low intensity modifier near talent, and that catch light is just really big in their eye. And easy ways to do that: one is to walk in your modifier to a place where it's still not uncomfortable and not invading talent space, but is, proximity wise, just bigger and softer and close. This light right here, I mean, is 2 arms lengths away from me. And in this controlled environment with this camera, the 2.8 at 2000 ISO, that's going through a teleprompter, so I'm losing light. This is set to 5% output on a 300 watt fixture. This is the Kelvin EPOS 300. But, fill that in with an aperture 300, an Nanlite 300, whatever it's going to be, and you get the basic idea. I love to take a 6x6 modifier and hang it between two C stands or create a T bar, um, and essentially just hang that off of there and bring that in almost like a split key on the side of talent, maybe just wrapped a little. But you've got to be careful because of this shadow right here, and you don't want that to be generally too pronounced. So finding that balance definitely is an issue. And that's the other way, Brandon, that you can start to think about getting a catchlight in talent's eyes, who are wearing glasses, which is split keying, which I've talked about a lot in the past, where you essentially are, if you set that key light up and you're keying, it's almost directly like this with talent. And what you're going to see is you're going to see a line down here. And then it's going to be dark on one side all the way to here. It's going to be light on the other side. And then you walk in out of frame, beadboard or a reflector or something like that, and you're creating like a little light sandwich for your key and your fill. But what will happen generally, based on when you position it, you will catch, it won't be more center of the eye or just off center. It'll be more to the side of it, but you'll still get a really nice catch light there. Yeah. All right, cool. So David says, what do you think of those curved reflectors normally used underneath models that give you a huge catch light on bottom of the eye? I think it's okay. I mean, to me, it feels a little unnatural because it's from a directional standpoint, it's a little bit of an unnatural source point, but not entirely, because we do see a lot of skip bounce light, right? Where light's coming in, it's bouncing off of a lighter floor. So if you're thinking about somebody who might be, for instance, in a kitchen with a white or a gray tiled floor, then you would tend to get a bounce from the floor and you would see something on the eyes, but it's not going to replicate those curved um, reflectors that you see. And they're great. I mean, the curve reflectors out of frame really work well for still photography. I don't think they necessarily work as well for video, because in stills, you can have them right out of frame and you're just taking one picture at a time. It's a little odd having this curved thing right below you, and I would probably just set something like a 4x4 or a 3x3 beadboard on the floor, and maybe just have that come off of, a pancake or a quarter or half apple, and something like that. So it just depends. Or a small stand. There are little light stands, and you can put a quacker or a platypus or duckbill clamp on there, and then clamp onto something like a billboard, a beadboard, a billboard. Of course, you emailed me during the episode with a with a still of the cat. You're killing me, Brandon. Send me this stuff before the episodes. Then that would be pretty awesome. Because let's just see. Yeah, there we go. I see a catch in there. It's there. It's kind of sitting right at the top. It's not completely entirely gone. Is that the one that you were getting from the iPhone, Brandon, or is that sort of the normal of what you caught? And I understand. I mean, that catch light can be really tricky, especially if it's just sitting right at the top of somebody's eyelid, because then if they look down a little or something like that, then it gets a little weird. David said, I just purchased my first. Your first what? Pray tell. Let me see. Yeah, we do. We need like a direct link from Brandon. It's just like stuff just populates. It's its own scene in Ecamm Live, and then all of a sudden I hear like a little beep 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 beep, and then it just shows up. All right, David Carroll, tell me what you mean by you just purchased your first. Maybe I missed a previous post, and that's why. So, yeah, that's what I don't know what you're talking about. So tell me about that. It won't stay on in the eye, as in the person's moving, Brandon, and you're losing the catch. That's my guess. So again, I think maybe, but they're looking direct to camera, right? Let me see. I'm gonna look. I know everybody can't see this, and I don't think I can create a scene right now that's gonna. It's just the way everything is set up on my computer at the moment. You're killing me, Brandon. You're killing me. Definitely playing with color here, coming in on both sides. So, yeah. Let's see. Can I get a scene going here for it moves with his generator. You got a Jenny, a 3K putt putt. All right. Well, where I didn't see the reference to that earlier on. Let me see if I can get a scene going here. Just give me a second, everybody. I know you're sort of seeing half of me. I probably have a scene that has something of here. Look, is that it? Yeah. Okay. So this is Brandon's dedicated page here. Everybody should be seeing this. This is from a prior shoot. Whoops, I don't want that. Let me find. Everybody has to be patient here because I'm going to screw this up. I have too many screens going, and it's a mess. I'm promising you that I'm going to screw this up, and that's part of the deal here. But let's see if I can find this image from our friend and plop this on. Let's see. Hopefully that's it. Oh, sorry, everybody. Usually turn out. There he is. Okay. It's happening in real time, everybody. I'm just doing what I can here. Okay. Let's go. Do we get any more? Everybody see that? We'll take that. The classic Brandon shots. There you go. And I can see what you're talking about here with that catch light being difficult. And if the person's looking direct to camera, that whole flip key thing, if they're not looking off camera, is a little more difficult. Though, were you getting a lot of reflections? Because to me, it feels like just a big key, maybe putting some beadboard down underneath, because it looks like you're keying from sort of camera side and above. Send you another picture. I don't usually have my email open during these live streams, because then what happens is the world opens up. This is that 1 hour where I try to ignore everything in the world, and you know, Brandon, you're killing me here. It's better than the 4,000 megabyte. Okay, so this second email you sent to me, Brandon, at least at the moment, I don't see an attachment. So maybe resend it to me. It says miscatch 2, but I don't see anything there. And yes, I acknowledge that I see that the key is top down. What I'm saying is that you could almost, you know, this is kind of in our butterfly lighting style. What you could do is, let me switch back to me because you can't even see me. We're just looking at the image. All right, we got to plan ahead for these a little bit better in the future, Brandon. So, if you're going top down from here and it's sort of butterfly lighting, one of the things that you could do, which not necessarily that curved reflector, but you could put a large piece of beadboard out of frame. And what that will do is it'll grab the light that's coming down from there. You can see I just added something white to this monitor. Look at that funny catch. Watch. This is Brandon's email going away, and now we don't have the lighting problem again. You know, I think if you had that return from underneath and you were grabbing some catch from that out of frame, that might work out pretty well. And if you don't want to, you know, affect essentially the two kickers that you have on each side of the face, and you still want to come in from the front there, that's probably what you have to do. The split key is not necessarily going to totally get you there. It could actually, though. I mean, if you split key and you had the light here and your kickers were coming from behind, it could still work pretty well. I mean, you know, yeah. So, but beadboard for me, you know, compressed styrofoam would probably be the best modifier because it's neutral, it's pure white. It bounces really well. It scatters light a lot. And if it's big enough, then you should be able to get something. If the person's looking into camera and it's coming up, I think you'd be able to get that. And it didn't work bouncing from the bottom, because you were talking, Brandon, about the iPhone to get the catch light before. Were you doing a clamshell setup? Because butterfly would be from the top, and then you get that little butterfly shaped shadow under. You won't be able to see it with me, obviously, but you know, somebody who didn't have a mustache. And then clamshell means that you've got that essentially butterfly lighting coming down on an angle from the camera side, and then you're filling with something white underneath, right? But it's usually out of frame and pretty large. So it doesn't sound like that was necessarily getting you to where you needed to be, but the overall look is what you're trying for. So were you just were you just laying that beadboard on the floor? Were you angling it up towards talent out of frame? I'd be interested to hear how you did that. And then, you know, it's a dance coming down low enough that you catch that catch light, you get the catch light, but still not get reflections, you know. I'm not coming straight from the front here, and you could still get shape like this. And if I had this kick in one color and then I kick from this side, The only problem is that it's pretty evenly lit here, so it have to be, you know, have to be pretty strong. And it looks like what you were really going for was actually evening it out. So give me some more information. That second email, for some reason, Brandon, I don't see an image on. So if you can get me something with a little bit of an image, that would be great. And away we go. All right. While we're waiting for that, kids, what's our next topic? What are we talking about? We can continue down this line about things we'd like to see. We can talk about Red and Nikon. We can talk about something entirely different altogether. But I would be interested to hear what people want to talk about today. Give me an at theC47. There are people here. I'm ready to talk. Let's go. By the way, Friday's episode 150 of the Daily Drop. I don't think I have anything special planned for it, but it will be episode 150. So that's a thing. And channel's still growing. People are still commenting, engaging with the episodes. It's great. I definitely am seeing more engagement overall consistently. So there's some of the regulars out there, most of you being here on the live stream, but a lot of new people are starting to do stuff as well. What would be a good eye light at night in the woods, horror type thing? It's a good question. I mean, you have to think about what your motivated sources are when you are outside at night. Obviously, the by far main one is going to be moonlight. And, that may mean, yes, some new sponsors coming on. It's all really going to kind of roll out in the beginning of April. What do you mean only Monday through Friday? Oh, no. Yes, it is. It's only Monday through Friday. So it's daily, 5 days a week. So for the outside part, you got to think about moonlight as being your main motivated source. There's not a lot of bounce going on outside at nighttime unless it's like a full moon or something like that. And then you kind of have to, it depends what you're seeing in the frame. If you're literally in the woods, then it's hard to sell that there's going to be a practical source coming. You know, from somewhere like the outside of a cabin or a house or something like that. If you're in an environment where a street lamp or something could exist, or maybe you see one, then that's a little bit different. But I think you just kind of have to think about the return of moonlight, whether that's going through clouds and is a bigger source. Well, then you can kind of sell the idea that it's wrapping around, and then it's kind of not dissimilar to what we were talking about before, which is just a return from your main key, not necessarily clamshell, but it's very common. And, David, you're talking about possibly backlighting with the moon, which is not a bad idea. Well, exposure wise for your talent, you wouldn't see a lot. But what if you set out of frame on the camera side a large bounce source, which is very common. And so basically what you do is you have whatever's playing as moonlight, actual moonlight, or you're creating it. And that's backlighting your talent. And then coming from this side would be a large modifier that would be, let's say, a 6x, an 8x, a 12x, which is essentially your return, so that you're getting that catch light and you're getting some exposure on your talent's face. Yes, Jess, I think flashlights can work well as long as they are written into or an obvious part of the scene. They can create that. And I think when you're outside and you're doing horror genre and things like that, we're a little less concerned about that catch light. In fact, sometimes not having it creates more suspense and drama because you don't see the catch. So I don't know. Thank you, David. See you. Don't forget that tomorrow is Camera Flask. You may not be able to go, but it's going to be at 3 p.m. Pacific on March 14th, Thursday. Odd day, but it's the one we can do this month. So thanks for coming. All right. So David, I don't know if that helps get you in the direction. If you want to talk about it some more, great. And then Brandon, are we continuing the conversation about your lighting? So let me know. Harrison says, I've used a pin flashlight with the main spot out of the frame. Only the point will read in the eyes. Yep, you can do that. Again, kind of goes back to Brandon's thing. When people are wearing glasses, it's a lot trickier, depending and what direction that light's coming from. Scott's here. And Scott, as I mentioned earlier in the live stream, is one of the resources. I know, Thaddeus, you were asking about the Red and Nikon. There's a lot of different ways to pronounce it. Acquisition. And Scott has more than one piece of content. One is a live stream, and Phil Holland and Jared Land, which for me goes way back. I mean, DVX 100 user. DVX user. Scott says Nikon. I say Nikon. Some people say Nikon, especially in Great Britain, and I would say Asia. Nikon is more, yeah. So Nikon is the official Texas way to pronounce Nikon. I'm going with it, Scott. I don't know if you're going to go with me on this ride, okay? But Scott's channel, which you can find easily, just look up his name on YouTube. If you haven't been there, I'm sure most of you have. Really gives you a great overview of what this whole thing is. And then he has a separate episode besides the live stream where he kind of gives his thoughts and his opinions on what's going on with this acquisition from Nikon. Yeah. So I'm glad some people who are commenting here have, yeah. Brandon, that question could mean a number of things. But I have actually, Scott makes or used to make these amazing smoked salts and peppers. And he sent me some, and I actually, Scott, used some of the pepper about 2 weeks ago. I did a brisket in the oven, kind of more Jewish style, but I wanted to have a little smoke flavor on it, and it was delicious. Jared said he was told by Nikon that it is Nikon. How many E's though? There's inconsistencies there. You've got 3 on one and 4 on the other, Scott. I'm taking the piss. I love how you say in the chat, I always call it Nikon myself, but that could also be Nikon. It's crazy. It's all nuts. You still make that stuff. Smoked brisket cannot be beat. Of all the smoked meats in the world, brisket reigns supreme for me. I love pulled pork, and I love to do a smoked turkey. My neighbor does a smoked duck, which I haven't had, and he's going to do one soon. So I was thinking about maybe doing fondant potatoes with that. I think that could be a good combination. But now we're getting into food stuff. I was adding Texas Southern drawl with the extra E's. Is it draw or drawl? I need to know. Nothing is better than brisket. Maybe. And you see these videos, maybe you haven't, but you see people who are from Europe who come to the States and they have barbecue for the first time. And one for one, when they hit the brisket, it's like their heads explode. They don't even know what's they don't even know what's going on. And it's because you think about European cuisine, which is very varied depending on where you are, but there really is, barbecue in the Texas sense. And then yes, North Carolina, Kansas City, they all have their takes. But if you just take Texas barbecue and you take that category of food and what it is, in my opinion, so uniquely American that it cannot be denied. It's undeniably American. And when people come to this country and they have real barbecue, they've never tasted anything quite like that in their entire lives. And I'm not trying to stop it, James. You're killing me. Now the lines are being drawn here. You start bringing up barbecue, it's going to be a shit show. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. Um, but the point is, it's uniquely American, whether or not you agree that there's good barbecue anywhere else but Texas. But I'll just take Texas, and and I think it's going to be kind of crazy. All right, but in James's words, not mine, Carolina barbecue is an abomination. I wouldn't go that far. And look, do you like it more vinegary? Do you like it more mustardy? Do you like no sauce, just smoked, and then you add that later? That's true, Scott. And you will find Texas barbecue in other places, and I have had it in other places, but most people outside of the U.S. have not had barbecue. And if they go to a restaurant, I mean, look, you can go to a Texas barbecue restaurant in London. It's not going to be bad, but there you go. I know you like barbecue, James, but I guess you're not considering Carolina barbecue. All right, let's get back to business here. Time to the equipment side of things. I know, Scott, that Texas brisket should not require any sauce. There's and with no sauce, one of my favorite things in the entire world. All right. DJ says, does FSI usually have a booth? If I was going, I'd spend money just to look at that 31-inch QD LED. I think they usually do. Whether or not they do this year, oh no, if you're still here, he's definitely searching the exhibitor list, could find out if they have a booth. I'm also intrigued and interested in seeing Small HD's new monitor, the 32-inch monitor that they co-developed with Samsung. That looks pretty fascinating. So I've been hearing some good things about it. I'm looking forward to checking that out. Especially, like we're gonna have to get to a place where we're not spending $20,000 to $25,000 for a Sony or Canon monitor. Not that they're not amazing, but in order for us to really kind of get our on-set, on-location HDR in production to HDR and post workflows going, we're gonna need semi-affordable monitors that actually allow us to switch between standard dynamic range and high dynamic range and see what the hell's going on. Salt Lick Barbecue outside of Austin, yes, amazing. They just opened up a location at the airport, which I heard is actually pretty decent. Ono is not going to be looking up our exhibitor list to see if FSI is at NAB because he's reading about the feng shui of colors for coffee shops. I'm just dubbing the rest of that in for you, Ono, but I don't think you're hitting the exhibitor list to see if FSI monitors is going to be there. Wait, Salt Lake in Austin is sold or solid? I hope you're saying solid. Okay, there you go. I was about to say, I don't think Salt Lake has been sold. Scott says, I find it interesting that Nikon releases firmware as major revisions like 4.0 and 5.0, where most companies release 1.1 and 1.2.1. I find that interesting. Oh, 1.2. Yeah. There's other companies that do that as well. It definitely seems like Blackmagic on their, at least for their iOS app for the Blackmagic camera, is doing those incrementals. I don't know. Maybe it's an Apple thing. Flanders, there he is, coming in for the win. They'll be there in 2 booths. I'm sure one of them's a shared one, and maybe one is dedicated. 7089. Wait a minute. Now we have 3 booth numbers. We got 1 coming from Ono and 2 coming from Thaddeus. Which one is the official of those 3? I don't know, but it sounds like, DJ, that the kids have figured it out, and There you go. I don't think Thaddeus is going this year. Um, what's this? Wait, what am I? What's this reply to Jess? What's the question here? I'm missing something here. Oh, smoked apple pie. How do I do that? I'm in. Yeah, that sounds delicious. All right. Um, oh no, got a screen cleaning kit from Flanders. Not a 31-inch monitor, but a screen cleaning. Flanders, yeah, it's sort of in those wish list categories. Alexa 35, Flanders monitor, innovative cart/carts. Um, yeah, Scott, this year I will probably do some booth based stuff. I'm actually figuring that out over the next couple of weeks. I'm not doing any workshops this year, but we're trying to see and plan for 2025 because we want to mix it up, and I think that's a good thing. I'll also be doing the daily drop. So basically, I'll be there at events and creating content, and then most likely doing at least 2 or 3 booth-based presentations. Still, again, working that out. It's amazing how close NAB is, but how much stuff happens in the last 3 to 4 weeks for that show. But I've done a lot of booth stuff in the past, so we'll figure it out. Maybe tied in with some of the sponsors that are coming on board for the daily drop. I've got a slew of meetings over the next week, and we're going to determine whether or not it makes any sense to do anything in and around any products there. And there you go. Daily drops are work, but I'm enjoying it, and it becomes part of, I won't say the routine, but it's part of the business plan, and it's something I really like doing. And as these companies come on board, then we start to create more educational content, which I think will be even more interesting. So integrity of the channel not changing. They don't get to review the videos, say what has to be in the videos exactly. It's more of a collaboration of, oh, okay, let's talk about products that you have that I think would be relevant to the audience watching the daily drop. Let's figure out, when stuff is coming out. Let's not make it about reviews, but how to use things, how they work, kind of stuff. So there you go. James says, how long till Red swaps RF for Z mount? I don't know. I mean, roadmap there. I'm hoping by NAB into Cinegear, we kind of get a sense of what this marriage is going to be like between the two companies. My take on it, and Scott, feel free to jump in, is I think Nikon, to a large degree, at least in the short term, but hopefully the long term, is going to let red still be red. And I think that that's the best case scenario. And I think it's also, a sharing of intellectual property and making some of the things that are happening on Nikon side, more interesting by some of the red technology. But at the same time, I can see some advantages going the other way for sure. To be competitive in the digital cinema camera space, especially when you are competing with companies like Sony and Canon and Ari. There are certain things that have to happen, and I think it's more so the Canon and the Sony side of it than it is the Ari side of it. So I think we're going to see some pretty interesting stuff there. Scott says, I feel like the first thing we'll see is R3D on Z8 and Z9, hopefully by NAB. Would be big to see that, but not sure they can pull it off that fast. Yeah, that'll be pretty interesting. I like that, Ono. That's funny about the Flanders sticker. And I have no schedule for my booth stuff right now, Brandon. Nothing has been set in stone. I'm going to be like a gypsy, a floater. I don't know. We'll see. No, Nikon won't switch to RF. Their Z mount is very flexible, and not completely unlike RF in the sense that it has a lot of flexibility, because everybody always talks about the focusing in one direction and it being different for Nikon than it is for a lot of the other manufacturers. And that's just because of the adoption. Was it Contax? Somebody, that Nikon sort of adopted the direction of the focusing from originally. But the Z mount is, you can, to my understanding, interchange it in terms of what direction you're focusing. So there you go. David says, I got a 1/6 scale Lando Calrissian figure for dark complexion lighting practice. It's pretty incredible. I'll send you a picture. That'd be great. And then, did you get Lobot as well? I could play a good Lobot, well, all right, that's a different discussion. Scott says, Z mount, my guess is minimum 18 months. It takes about 24 months to bring a new cam to market. It wouldn't make sense to update an old cam with just Z mount. Agreed. Z mount is closest to sensor and wider than EF and RF, so it's one fits the other if they are allowed. So you're saying the flange distance is the closest, more than E? Okay. Is it the most flexible mount of them all? Is it have the closest flange distance or the further? Yes. So in theory, E and RF and L would all be able to adapt to Z mount. Is that what you're saying? You're never seeing me do the Lobot, DJ. It's never happening. Or not ever again. That story gone. 4 millimeters closer than Z. Wait, what's 4 millimeter closer than Z? Not Z. Z is the Nikon mount. But what is the closest? I'm confused by the second to last one, Scott. I know that E is further away. There is a Z to E already. Got it. I'm just confused by the 4 millimeter closer than Z comment, but everything else I'm tracking with. All right. What do we got here, kids? Unbelievably, we're actually close to the end of today's live stream, but we have another one coming up tomorrow. Camera Flask, where we get to talk about more stuff and get other viewpoints and stuff. Copy. Now I am tracking that last comment. Scott, makes sense. So Z is closest to sensor, so theoretically adaptable to any of the other mounts that are on the market. And I always thought that it was E mount from Sony, because I know that was like the closest, but it's good to know Z is even closer. Ding Dong says word up with the E. 2 in a row. This is out of control. Well, there's been some missing live streams happening here, so we're trying to make up for this missing live stream situation. And we kind of needed to do a weekly one. And then I'm really looking forward to doing Camera Flask tomorrow and talking more about this stuff. I'm tracking everything, Scott. Great information. Dylan comes in at the end saying large companies take a long time to make changes. From what I gathered on Scott's stream, the global shutter was Jarrett's exit goal. Who will be the innovator for Red? Is there a maverick in place? Scott, want to weigh in on that? You think Jarrett is leaving the building completely or not? You and I both know quite a few people who work for Red. David, happy birthday ahead of time, and have a great one if you can't make it tomorrow. I want to tell my 5-year-old self that yes, dreams do come true. That one came out of left field, I think, unless you're referring to the live streams. Oh no, you're cracking me up. And please do keep up to date on when you're coming in, but I think this get together has to be on Monday, because of Caleb's schedule, but we'll see. Awesome. I don't know what else we got here. If there's any other comments that anybody wants to drop before we there. As he said, Raptor X is a good retirement camera, but that doesn't mean he's leaving anytime soon. Interesting. It will be an interesting ride for Red. It's very rare that a Japanese company buys an American company in our space, in this industry. So it doesn't mean that Nikon is not operating in this country and in Europe, and all the big Japanese companies do. But it'll be interesting to see how that relationship evolves. So yes, and Phil did an amazing job on that. His most in-depth test of that I can tell of sensor stuff that he's done. Great. I think that's it for today's weekly live stream. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Pacific time, March 14th, 2024, Camera Flask will be at least myself and Caleb Pike. Hopefully Ben Barden will be joining us as well. Hopefully most of you, maybe not David because of his birthday, will be joining as well. I appreciate all of the engagement. I appreciate the engagement on the daily drops. Everything everybody contributes to the channel. Scott, looking forward to seeing you at NAB. And you are hard to miss, as you know, and I am easy to miss. So, you know, it's like if you and Curtis Judd were walking around and I was around, I would be the Hobbit, and you would be the other people that I'd be looking up to. But there you go. All right, everybody. All the best. See, hopefully some or all of you tomorrow, and take care. See ya.